The human brain is not fixed. It's adaptable. It's a learning machine. And science has now uncovered the exact protocols that allow you to learn anything faster, deeper, and with lasting impact. Whether it's mastering a new language, excelling at a sport, or picking up a creative skill, the key is not more effort, but smarter neurobiology. In this talk, we'll dive into the neuroscience of plasticity, the role of focused attention, the importance of rest and repetition, and how simple tools like vision, breathwork, and timing can accelerate your ability to acquire skills. If you've ever said, I wish I could learn faster, then today is the day we start rewiring your brain to do exactly that, because the science is clear. Faster learning is not just possible, it's trainable. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change its structure and function based on experience. It is the biological foundation that allows us to learn new skills, adapt to challenges, and refine existing behaviors. When we practice something repeatedly, the brain begins to form and strengthen neural circuits that support that activity. These circuits are made up of neurons that communicate more efficiently the more they are used. The process is experience dependent, meaning the brain doesn't change randomly. It changes based on what we pay attention to and engage with regularly. Every time we focus deeply on a new skill, whether it's playing an instrument, speaking a new language, or coding, we're instructing our brain to wire itself around that behavior. The brain is essentially taking notes on what matters, and it prioritizes those inputs that come with high levels of attention and emotional salience. At the cellular level, this involves the formation of new synapses and the strengthening or weakening of existing ones. Chemicals like dopamine and acetylcholine play a crucial role in this. Dopamine signals importance and motivation, while acetylcholine sharpens attention to specific sensory inputs. These neurochemicals are released when we're highly focused and slightly challenged. Conditions that tell the brain, this is worth remembering. That's why distracted practice doesn't lead to real learning. It's the intensity of the focus, not just the repetition, that builds lasting neural pathways. Neuroscience also shows that plasticity is gated by specific brain states. When we are alert but calm, with a high degree of mental engagement, the brain becomes highly receptive to forming new connections. This is also influenced by the phase of the day and our internal rhythms. Morning and early afternoon often provide a more favorable environment for neuroplastic changes because of how cortisol and neuromodulators fluctuate. Another key component of plasticity is the concept of specificity. The brain doesn't generalize easily. It strengthens what you practice. If you're trying to get better at public speaking, for instance, thinking about speaking isn't enough. You have to actually speak, feel the discomfort, make errors, and correct them. The mistakes you make while learning are not failures, but crucial elements of neuroplasticity. The brain uses those errors as signals to refine the circuitry involved. Repetition of the correct version, especially after an error, has a powerful effect on rewiring. Learning is not a smooth, linear process, but a jagged one that thrives on mistakes followed by correction. Peak focus states are critical for accelerating how quickly and deeply we learn any new skill. When we are intensely focused, specific neuromodulators like acetylcholine and norepinephrine are released in the brain, enhancing our ability to engage with the material or task at hand. These chemicals act like highlighters, marking certain neural circuits as important and directing the brain to prioritize those for change and retention. Focus is not just about attention, it's a biological signal that instructs the brain to reorganize itself based on what we are doing at that moment. Without this signal, the brain treats the experience as unimportant and does not allocate resources for lasting change. This is why multitasking during learning dramatically reduces the effectiveness of the session. Peak focus also amplifies what's called task-related neural activity. That means the more concentrated your mental engagement with the skill, the more the specific neurons involved in that skill fire together. And as the famous phrase in neuroscience says, neurons that fire together wire together. This wiring process is essential for skill formation. The strength and stability of those new neural connections depend directly on how alert and engaged you were during practice. If your mind was wandering, the brain simply doesn't encode the information with the same strength. To enter a peak focus state, there must be a balance of challenge and skill. The task should be difficult enough to demand your attention, but not so hard that it triggers stress or disengagement. This is often referred to as the sweet spot of learning, where your brain is working at the edge of its ability. In this state, the prefrontal cortex becomes highly active, filtering out distractions and locking in on the immediate goal. You become more present, your reaction time shortens, and your brain becomes primed for plasticity. Even brief periods of this intense focus, 20 to 30 minutes, can be far more effective than hours of passive or distracted learning. Environmental factors also influence your ability to enter peak focus. Reducing visual and auditory distractions, turning off notifications, and maintaining good posture all contribute to a more focused brain state. Breathing techniques such as deliberate sighs or nasal inhales can quickly shift the nervous system into a state of alert calm, which enhances focus further. Deliberate practice creates the foundation for learning, but the consolidation of that learning happens during deep rest. When you engage in focused skill acquisition, you are essentially tagging certain neural pathways for change. However, those pathways are not solidified during the practice itself. They are strengthened and stabilized during periods of non-conscious processing, especially during sleep. Sleep is not a passive state. It is an active phase where the brain replays patterns of activity from your learning sessions. This replay helps reinforce the synaptic changes necessary for long-term retention and skill improvement. Specifically, slow wave sleep and REM sleep both play distinct roles in this process. Slow wave sleep supports the stabilization of motor and factual learning, while REM sleep helps in connecting information creatively and refining procedural tasks. The idea that rest is as important as effort is now supported by strong evidence from neuroscience. Short periods of deep rest, even 10 to 20 minutes of non-sleep deep rest, NSDR, or meditation, can allow the brain to reset its levels of norepinephrine, a chemical involved in alertness and attention. After an intense focus session, norepinephrine can become depleted, leading to mental fatigue and reduced cognitive control. Taking rest between learning blocks replenishes these neuromodulators and enhances your brain's readiness for the next round of practice. This cycling between focus and rest mirrors natural ultradian rhythms, roughly 90-minute cycles the brain operates on throughout the day, alternating between high and low alertness. Aligning your learning sessions with these rhythms leads to more efficient encoding and consolidation. Neuroscience also shows that the hippocampus, the brain's learning hub, communicates with the cortex more actively during rest periods, replaying sequences of neural activity that occurred during learning. These replays are not random. They selectively strengthen what was most intensely focused on. That means rest isn't just about relaxing. It's a biological process where the brain refines what it has just practiced. Without these moments of deep rest, even the most rigorous training sessions will lead to only temporary improvements. Studies have shown that people who nap or get quality sleep after learning retain far more than those who stay awake and continue cramming or training. Rest also plays a crucial role in pruning away inefficient neural connections. During deep sleep, the brain identifies which connections are weak or unused and eliminates them to improve overall efficiency. This streamlining process makes the remaining connections stronger and more reliable, which is essential for fluid skill performance. Error signals are not just byproducts of learning, they are essential for the brain to adapt and improve. When you make a mistake during practice, your brain generates a prediction error, essentially a signal that something expected did not occur. This moment of mismatch creates a window of heightened plasticity, allowing your brain to become more receptive to change. Dopamine, the neuromodulator associated with motivation and reward, is deeply involved in this process. Interestingly, dopamine doesn't just increase when you succeed. It also spikes when the brain detects that something valuable can be learned from a mistake. This transforms the error into an opportunity for growth rather than a failure to be avoided. When a learner pays close attention to the error and then immediately attempts to correct it, the brain begins refining the specific neural circuits involved in that action or thought pattern. This is particularly powerful in motor learning, language acquisition, and cognitive tasks. The circuits that produced the incorrect output are compared in real time to the new version, and the brain works to strengthen the more accurate one. This comparison process enhances the efficiency of neural encoding and builds more robust connections, which translates to faster learning and better performance over time. There is also a strong link between emotional engagement and error correction. When people feel a slight sense of frustration or urgency after making a mistake, but not overwhelming stress, that emotional state primes the brain for adaptive learning. The limbic system, which processes emotional salience, interacts with the prefrontal cortex to direct more attention to what just went wrong. In doing so, the brain essentially bookmarks that moment as a high priority update. This is why passive review of errors without emotional engagement or focus doesn't create the same learning outcome. Error-driven learning also benefits from spaced repetition. When errors are encountered and corrected at different intervals, the brain receives varied reinforcement that helps generalize the correct response across different contexts. This is especially useful in developing flexible, either great pain, background chatter. Simultaneously, the basal forebrain increases norepinephrine release, either great pain, sharpening alertness and locking your cognitive resources onto the chosen stimulus. The great pain, this neurochemical dew transforms a fleeting glance into a neurobiological command that says, adapt here. Mental framing amplifies this effect by adding a cognitive overlay that tells the brain why the information matters. When you mentally label a drill as crucial for tomorrow's performance or a paragraph as key to passing the exam, dopamine pathways in the ventral tegmental area and nucleus accumbens surge elevating motivation and enhancing synaptic plasticity in any circuit active at that moment. In this interplay means that what you focus on and how you think about it jointly dictate where the brain invests its limited plasticity resources. Research using eye and tractional MRI shows that microsaccades, tiny jerk, like eye movements that occur when you maintain intense focus, are predictive of learning success. Each microsaccade is coupled with a rapid spike in noradrenergic activity, effectively punctuating the brain's internal metronome that sets learning in motion. The more precisely you control your gaze, the more these spikes occur and the more robust the plastic changes. Similarly, experiments on mental framing reveal that reinterpreting a mundane task as a challenge activates the anterior cingulate cortex, boosting error detection and adaptive adjustments. This means you can deliberately trigger neurochemical engagement by pairing a laser-focused stare with an empowering inner narrative. Practical protocols leverage this biology. Start a practice block with a 30-second period of concentration staring at the exact point of action, a pane accompanied by a short phrase that captures the goal, such as smooth finger transition or perfect arc. Maintain soft peripheral awareness, but avoid darting eyes to prevent dissipating acetylcholine. Every few minutes, briefly look away to a distant object or close your eyes for 5 to 10 seconds. This res reset prevents neuromodulator depletion and preserves high-gain focus when you return. Use mental framing to convert inevitable mistakes into cues for growth by silently tagging them as update signals, which preserves dopamine tone instead of triggering frustration, either great pain. Over repeated sessions, the brain links this focused visual attention and positive framing with successful outcomes, gradually reducing cognitive effort while maintaining high performance through automated neural circuitry strengthening